Here we go, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Bookaccino Live. We're so happy to have you here with us. We've got a very, very exciting program for you. These are your top picks from May's presentation. First is Colin Toybin's Long Island, which I listened to on audio and absolutely loved. And I'll tell you what's something really fun about it is there is one narrator when you're listening to the audiobook, just one, and she does all these voices. And at the end, she talks about how this is such a conversation-heavy book, and as a result, how she had to spend so much time changing the voices as she went through. Really, I felt was one of the best done audiobooks that I've listened to. I really thought it was a chorus of voices. I did not think it was just one. Next is Lisa Wingate's Shelterwood. I absolutely love this book. It takes place in Oklahoma. We'll be talking about it more in the presentation. She's the author of the New York Times bestseller, Before We're Yours. I interviewed her earlier this week, and we're hoping to have that up by Friday. Next, we've got The Lion Women of Tehran, which I'm absolutely crazy about. This is a bets on as well, just like Shelterwood is. It's by Marjan Kamali. It is a fabulous story that takes place in different time periods in Iran, and it's really the story of a friendship between two women, one who stays in Iran and one who comes here to the United States. And if any of you saw the 60 Minutes piece this week about Iran and what's going on there and what's going on with women and also happening with Iranians all over the world, it's just fascinating. Next, we've got another bet son of mine, The Stolen Child by Anne Hood. We had 25 early readers of this book, and the people just loved it. So there we've got The Stolen Child. Got Real Americans by Rachel Kong. I have not read this book yet. It's a Read with Jenna selection, but I will tell you that one of my trusted reader friends has said she's really enjoying it, and I do trust her. Next is Kate Quinn's The Briar Club. Haven't read this yet. I believe it's still coming out. And then Mary Kay Andrews, Summers at the Saint. I think it's her best summer book. And it was a bets on selection, and we have an interview with her as well. So there's our lineup. I will be interviewing Marjan Kamali as well. Not sure who else in the future from this list, but just her. So let's start with our fiction titles. Starting out with Dad Camp. Dad Camp. I love the title of this book. Oops, 1 second. Hold on, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. Just have to move one thing on my screen. Hold on just 1 second, folks. Just give me 1 second so I can actually read. There's a bar that's over everything. Okay. It's by Evan S. Porter. It's on sale this week. It's after his daughter Avery was born, John gave it all up to be the super dad. Since then, he spent nearly every waking second with Avery, who's his absolutely best bud, or at least she was. When now 11-year-old Avery begins transforming into an eye-rolling zombie of a preteen who dreads spending time with him, a desperate John whisks her away for a week-long father-daughter retreat to get the relationship back on track. But John's attempts to bond only seem to drive his daughter further away, and his instincts tell him that Avery's hiding something more than just preteen angst. Even worse, the camp is far from idyllic, and not the getaway he had in mind, and he finds himself navigating a group of toxic dads. We thought they were only toxic moms, they're actually toxic dads, who can't seem to get along, cringeworthy forced bonding activities, and a camp director who has it out for him. So there you got Dad Camp, and it looks like the dad's the one falling out of the canoe. Next up, and there's a quote there from Jonathan Tropper, and we know that Jonathan Tropper's got such a great sense of humor. So if he's endorsing this, oops, I'm getting ahead today. Okay. Next up, we've got The Rom-Commers from Catherine Center. This is also on sale this week. Emma Wheeler desperately longs to be a screenwriter, but she's been the sole caretaker of her dad who needs full-time care. Now, when she gets a chance to rewrite a script for a famous screenwriter, Charlie Yates, it's a break too big to pass up. Emma's younger sister steps in for caretaking duties, and Emma moves to LA for the writing gig of a lifetime. Charlie Yates doesn't want to write with anyone, much less a failed nobody screenwriter. Worse, the romantic comedy he's written is so terrible, it might actually bring on the apocalypse. Plus, he doesn't even care about the script. It's just a means to getting a different show greenlit. But Emma is not going down without a fight. She will convince him that love stories matter, even if she has to kiss him senseless to do it. But what if that kiss is absolutely amazing? Yep, light summer fare for summer. Next, we've got a book that is perfectly titled. It's Ellen Hilderbrand's Swan Song. And this is her final Nantucket-based novel. In the newsletter a couple of weeks ago, I shared a piece that was in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, I don't remember which one, about her, where when she sits down to write, she does one thing. She puts on a bikini. And she has 66 bikinis that she has worn over the time that she is writing these books. And I just found that was like hysterical to sit and say, what did you do to write? Well, I put on my bikini and went outside. So in this book, Chief of Police Ed Cappenash is about to retire. Sound familiar? Who else is retiring? Bond Sharon is going through a divorce. But when a $22 million summer house is purchased by the mysterious Richardsons, how did they make their money exactly? Ed, Sharon, and everyone in the community are swept up in high drama. The Richardsons throw lavish parties, flirt with multiple locals, flaunt their wealth with not one but two yachts, and raise impossible hopes of everyone they meet. When their house burns to the ground and their most essential employee goes missing, the entire island is up in arms. So it looks like in the Swan Song, while the woman's wearing a one piece, she's going out with a two-piece bag with a great story. So there you go. She will be continuing to write, just not basing Nantucket-based novels. She feels that she's mined that territory enough. Next, we've got Tarantulas by Porchista Kakpour. This out this week. Iranian-American multimillionaires Ali and Homa Milani have it all. A McMansion in the hills of Los Angeles, a microwavable snack empire, and four spirited daughters. I love that that's what you need to have it all, like the McMansion, the snack empire, and the four spirited daughters. Just hold that thought. There's Violet, the big-hearted, aspiring model, Roxana, the chaotic influencer, Minna, the chronically online overachiever, and the impressionable health fanatic Haley. On the verge of landing their own TV reality show, Milanis realize their deepest secrets are about to be dragged out into the open before the cameras even roll. Each of the Milanis, even their aloof Persian cat Harry, has something to hide, but the looming scrutiny of fame also brings the family closer than ever together. And on the left-hand side, you can see that we've got book group speed dating here. When you see those titles, last week when we did our book group speed dating event, that means it will be one of the titles that we talked about during book group speed dating. So there you've got that. And this just sounds like a lot of fun. And when Matthew presented it last week, he definitely made it sound fun as well. Next, we've got Same as It Ever Was by Clara Lombardo, on sale on June 18th. After a youth marked by upheaval and emotional turbulence, Julia Ames has found herself on the placid plateau of midlife. But Julia has never navigated the world with the equanimity of her current privileged class. Having nearly derailed herself several times, making desperate bids for the kind of connection she always felt inaccessible, to her at 57, she finally feels she has a firm handle on things. Julia's unprepared, though, for what comes next: a surprise announcement from her straight arrow son, an impending separation from her spiky teenage daughter, and a seductive resurgence of the past, all of which threaten to draw her back into the patterns that previously kept her on razor's edge. Now, what are we learning from these books, folks? If you've got money, you don't necessarily want the reality show, you don't necessarily be able to say it's going to be okay. There's still going to be upheaval, emotional turbulence. So all that longing for success, and look at this, the other people, the house burned down. Just keep these things in mind. Next, we've got Sandwich by Catherine Newman. It's June top library reads pick. That's librarians from across the country voted on the books that they feel are going to be the best for people to go out and read. So here we go. It's coming on June 18th. For the past 2 decades, Rocky has looked forward to her family's yearly escape to Cape Cod. Their humble beach town rental has been the site of sweet memories, sunny days, great meals, and messes of all kinds. This vacation, with Rocky sandwiched between her half-grown kids and fully aging parents, promises to be just as delightful as summers past. Except for perhaps Rocky's hormonal bouts of rage and melancholy, low menopause. Body is changing, her life is too, and the chain of events sent her into the past, reliving both the tenderness and sorrow of a handful of long ago summers. When Rocky comes face to face with her family's history and future, she's forced to accept that she can no longer hide her secrets from the people she loves. There's lots of secret hiding going on, in case you haven't figured that out too, in these books. Next, we've got A Happier Life from Christy Woodson Harvey. This is on sale on June 25th. In the present day, Keaton Smith is desperate for a fresh start. So when her mother needs someone to put her childhood home in Beaufort, North Carolina on the market, she jumps at the chance to head south. But the moment she steps foot inside the abandoned house, she's confronted with secrets about her grandparents, who died in a car accident before she was born. 1976. After meeting her husband, Townsend, Rebecca Beck St. James abandoned the life she knew and never looked back. 40 years later, she's made a name for herself as the best hostess North Carolina has ever seen. But she's struggling behind the facade. As both Keat and the Becks face new challenges and chapters, they're connected through time by the house on Sunset Lake, which has protected the secrets, hopes, and dreams of the women in their family for generations. And there we've got a happier life. And Emily Giffen says, if you love a small town, Southern charm, family mysteries, or romance, this novel needs to be in your beach bag. I loved it. Next, we've got Honey, which is by Isabel Banta, and it's going to be one of our summer reading giveaway books. It's coming out on June 25th. It's 1997, and Amber Young has received a life-changing call. It's a chance thousands of girls would die for. The opportunity to join a girl group, Cloud9, in Los Angeles and escape her small town. She quickly finds herself in the orbit of fellow rising star Gwen Morris, a driven singer-dancer, and Wes Kingston, member of the biggest boy band in the world, ETA. As Amber embarks on her solo career and her fame intensifies, her rich interior life is frequently reduced. Surrounded by people who claim to love her, but only wish to exploit her, and driven by a desire for recognition and success, for love and sex, for agency and connection, Amber comes of age at a time when the kaleidoscope of public opinion can distort everything, and one mistake can shatter a career. And it's really interesting that the book is set in the 90s, because when I was talking to Ruth Reichel a couple of weeks ago, she had set her book that's out right now, the Paris novel, in the 80s. And her next book is going to be set in the 90s, because she said it was just like a crazy decade. And so much happened then in fashion, arts, literature, politics, just everything that was going on. And we were talking about how Vanity Fair had really hit its stride in the 90s. And it was like one of those you can't miss with a great celebrity magazine, because there was so much happening. So just keep that in mind when you think of the time frame of Honey. Next, we've got How the Lights Get In by Joyce Maynard. And I'm looking forward to this because it's the eagerly anticipated follow-up to Count the Ways. I remember we had a discussion with her about Count the Ways in a book club discussion a while back, and she was just so interesting and really interested in getting back with these characters. So here's where we are. Following the death of her former husband, Cam, 54-year-old Eleanor has moved back to the New Hampshire farm where they raised 3 children to care for their brain-injured son, Toby, who's now an adult. Toby's older brother, Al, is married and living in Seattle with his wife. Their sister, Ursula, lives in Vermont with her husband and 2 children. Although all appears stable, old resentments, anger, and bitterness simmer just below the surface. How the Light Gets In follows Eleanor and her family through 15 years, 2010 to 2024. The story plays out against a uniquely American backdrop and the events that transformed their world: climate change, the January 6th insurrection, school violence, and shaped their lives: later love, parental alienation, and steadfast friendship. It's going to be really interesting to see what she does about the years where the pandemic happened. A lot of authors are skipping 2020. Anything. One of the authors said the other day she started doing math and she realized she was going to have to put the characters in 2020. So she had to move the whole story back so she didn't have to deal with it. Very interesting. Next, we've got Boss Lady by 2 authors who I've really enjoyed their past books. They've made me laugh. It's Ali Frank and Asha Humans. This is on sale on January 2nd. A promising inventor and budding entrepreneur, Antonia, Tony Arroyo, fights to keep her passions alive as a financially strapped mother of twins with a job in airport transportation services that has her going in circles, probably literally. One treasured frequent passenger is elderly traveler Sylvia Eisenberg, Tony's sage but unofficial advisor and cheerleader. When Tony meets Sylvia's grandson, Ash, a striking venture capitalist, luck just might bend her way. With a game-changing new business endeavor in development, Tony hustles an opportunity to pitch her idea on TV's Innovation Nation. Tony's unexpected challenger, her very own recently resurfaced, not quite ex-husband. And that's where these books always get fun, because there's always a guy that, oh my gosh, I have to see him again. As Tony's interrupted past collides with her tenuous future, she's more determined than ever to follow through on her delayed dreams. There's Boss Lady. Next, from J. Courtney Sullivan, we've got The Cliffs, coming on July 2nd as well. I've loved her past books, and I'm looking forward to this. And let's see if I can read this. I did not put my glasses on. A stunning achievement. J. Courtney Sullivan's best book yet. I could not put it down. I heard that's from Anna Napolitano, who was our guest a couple of weeks ago. And I actually heard them in conversation on an interview from Barnes and Noble. And she was saying how much she loves this book that Courtney's got coming out. So what do we have going on in it? On a secluded bluff overlooking the ocean sits a Victorian house that contains a century's worth of secrets. By the time Jane Flanagan discovers the house as a teenager, it's long been abandoned. There's still clothes in the closets, marbles rolling around on the floors, and dishes in the cupboards, even though no one has set foot there in decades. The house becomes a hideaway for Jane, a place to escape her volatile mother. 20 years later, Jane returns home to Maine, following a terrible mistake that threatens both her career as an archivist and her marriage. She's horrified to find the Victorian is now barely recognizable. The new owner, Genevieve, has gutted it and is convinced that it's haunted. She hires Jane to research the history of the place and the women who live there. And the story that Jane uncovers is even older than Maine itself. What a fun book to read on vacation. Next, we've got The Townsend Family Recipe for Disaster by Shauna Robinson, also coming on July 2nd. Mae Townsend has always dreamed of connecting with her estranged Black family in the South. She grew up picturing relatives who looked like her, crowded dinner tables and bustling kitchens, and, of course, the Townsend family barbecue, the tradition that kept her late father flying to North Carolina year after year, despite the mysterious rift that always required her to stay behind. But as Mae's wedding draws closer, promising a future of always standing out among her white in-laws, suddenly not knowing the Townsends hits her like a blow. So when news arrives that her paternal grandmother has passed, she decides it's high time to head south. I'm looking forward to this one as well. Got some historical fiction. We start out with, this book was just announced as Oprah's book club selection. It is out from Blackstone Publishing. It's called The Familiaris. It's by David okay, let me try to do this one. Wroblewski, David Wroblewski. I am sure that Oprah did it better than me. Let's just go there, I'm sure. Okay, so the long-awaited follow-up to 2008's The Story of Edgar Sawtelle, which was another Oprah pick, is a stirring origin story of the Sawtelle family and the remarkable dogs that carry the Sawtelle name. It's spring 1919, and John Sawtelle's imagination has gotten him into trouble again. Now John and his newlywed wife, Mary, along with their two best friends and their three dogs, are setting off for Wisconsin's North Woods, where they hope to make a fresh start, and with a little luck, discover what it takes to live a life of meaning, purpose, and adventure. But the place they are headed for is for far strangers and more perilous than they realize, and it will take all their ingenuity, along with a few new friends, animal, human, and otherworldly, to realize their dreams. So there you've got the latest Oprah selection. Next, we've got The Glassmaker by Tracy Chevalier, which is coming on June 18th. It's 1486, and Venice is a wealthy, opulent center for trade. Orsola Rosso is the eldest daughter in a family of glassblowers on Murano, the island revered for their craft. As a woman, she is not meant to work with glass, but she has the hands for it, the heart, and a vision. When her father dies, she teaches herself to make glass beads in secret, and her work supports the Rosso family fortunes. Skipping like a stone through the centuries, in a Venice where time moves as slowly as molten glass, we follow Orsola and her family as they live through creative triumph and heartbreaking loss. From a plague-devastating Venice to continental soldiers stripping its palazzos bare, from the domination of Murano and its maestros to the transformation of the city of trade into a city of tourists. I think that's a gorgeous cover, The Glassmaker. Next, we've got Jackie, a novel by Dawn Tripp, and people are just so excited about this book. I just got a note to see if I want to get a copy, and I'm hoping I could interview Dawn as well. She's the best-selling author of Georgia. This is coming on June 18th. Jackie's the story of a woman who forged a legacy out of grief and shaped history even as she was living it. The story of a love affair, a complicated marriage, and the fracturing of identity that comes in the wake of unthinkable violence. When Jackie meets charismatic Congressman Jack Kennedy in Georgetown, she's 21 and dreaming of France. She won an internship at Vogue. Kennedy, she thinks, is not her kind of adventure, yet she is drawn to his mind, his humor, and his drive. The chemistry between them ignites. During the White House years, the love between two independent people deepens. And then a motorcade in Dallas, 3.5 seconds, that's all it was. A slivered instant between the first shot, which missed the car, and the second, which did not. I know that we've heard a lot about Jackie Kennedy through the years, but people are buzzing about this one and how well it's written and what a terrific job Dawn has done with the material. And somehow I don't have a copy, but I am writing for one right after this. Next, we've got Husbands and Lovers from Beatrice Williams. It's coming on June 25th, and she's doing something a little bit different. She's not going so far in the past with her books as she did before. Her talking about it at a luncheon, and I'm hoping to do an interview with her as well. So we start in New England. It's 2022. 3 years ago, single mother Mallory Dunn's 10-year-old son, Sam, suffered acute poisoning from a toxic death cap mushroom. Now searching for a donor kidney, Mallory is forced to confront two harrowing secrets from her past: her mother's adoption and her romance with her childhood best friend, Monk Adams, which was cut short by a devastating betrayal. And I will tell you that this is the kind of thing, before I go to the next paragraph, that happens with toxic mushrooms. Years ago, Nicholas Evans, I love Nicholas Evans, the horse whisperer author, had been in the woods and had brought some mushrooms back, and he cooked them up for his wife, his brother-in-law, and his sister-in-law, and 3 of the 4 of them were in kidney failure by the following morning. And they were very lucky that none of the children ate the mushrooms. And if you Google his name in this, you'll see the whole story of what went on. And he was on dialysis for years, and then finally got a kidney transplant from his daughter. Sadly, he passed away a couple of years ago from, I believe it was a heart attack. So he was one of my favorite authors' favorite people. So I do know that, exactly what can happen with the toxic mushrooms. Then let's go to Cairo, 1951. Hungarian refugee Hannah Ainsworth has married a wealthy British diplomat with a coveted post in glamorous Cairo. But a fateful encounter with the enigmatic manager of a hotel bristling with spies leads to a passionate love affair that will reawaken Hannah's longing for everything she once lost. As revolution simmers in the Egyptian streets, a pregnant Hannah finds herself snared in a game of intrigue between 2 men and an act of sacrifice that will echo down the generations. So there you've got the second half of the story. Great cover, too. Next, we've got the book that I spoke about before, The Lion Women of Tehran. This is one of my book reporter bets on selections. I'm looking forward to interviewing Marjan. Many of you may remember her as the author of The Stationery Shop that came out and was a big hit a couple of years ago. And it's also one of our summer reading selections. Got the contest open right now on the site. We're giving away 25 copies. So keep that in mind. And it's a summer reading book as well. So 1950s Tehran, 7-year-old Ellie lives in grand comfort until the untimely death of her father, forcing Ellie and her mother to move to a tiny home downtown. Luckily, on the first day of school, Ellie meets Homa, a kind, passionate girl with a brave and irrepressible spirit. And together they play games, learn to cook in the stone kitchen of Homa's warm home, wander the streets through colorful stalls of the Grand Bazaar, and share their ambitions becoming lion women. Their happiness is disrupted when Ellie and her mother are afforded the opportunity to return to their previous bourgeois life. Now a popular student at the best girls' school in Iran, Ellie's memories of Homa begin to fade. Years later, however, her sudden reappearance in Ellie's privileged world will alter the course of both of their lives. This is absolutely so well done. It's a Book of the Month Club selection. It's an Indie Next selection. Adrienne Bador said it's heartbreaking and life-affirming. And there's just so much great news happening for this book. And I'm happy for Marjan. She's a lovely person on top of everything else. Next, we've got Meet Me at the Starlight, which is one of our summer reading selections by Rachel Hauk. It's coming out on July 2nd. It's 1987, and supermodel Harlow Hayes seeks solace in a quaint Florida beach town to heal the heartbreak that shattered her entire world. To her surprise, she encounters Matt Knight, a Hollywood A-lister with a bad boy reputation, who's returned to his hometown to help his plucky grandmother, Tuesday, save her century-old skating rink. Starlight holds a special place in the heart of the community, once acting as a refuge for Depression-era families and bringing the town together with gatherings and celebrations. Yet when the Starlight is threatened with demolition, Tuesday begins to wonder if an era has come to a close. As Matt and Harlow strategize to save the rink, they find themselves on a journey of surprises, self-discovery, and the kind of healing that leads to love. So there we've got Meet Me at the Starlight. Now we've got some thrillers and mysteries, starting with James Lee Burke, Cleet, which is out this week. Cleet Purcell is Dave Robichaud's longtime friend and partner in detective work, but he's got a troubled past. When Cleet leaves his car at the local car wash, only to return to find it ransacked by a group of thugs tied to the drug trade from Mexican cartels to Louisiana, it feels personal. Just as Cleet starts to trail the culprits, Clara Bow hires Cleet to investigate her scheming ex-husband and a string of brutal deaths, all linked back to a heavily tattooed man who seems to lurk around every corner. Cleet is experiencing shockingly lifelike hallucinations and questioning Clara's ulterior motives when he and Dave start to hear rumors of a dangerous substance with potentially catastrophic effects. The thugs who had destroyed his car might just have been pawns in a scheme far darker than they could have imagined. So there's a Dave Robichaud novel. Next, we've got The Housemaid is Waiting by Frida McFadden. Frida McFadden's books have been climbing up the paperback bestseller list. She's sort of where Colleen Hoover was last year. It's the summer of Frida McFadden. This is out this week. It's The Housemaid is Watching is the third installment in Frida McFadden's Housemaid series, following The Housemaid and The Housemaid's Secrets. Now she's watching. She lives next door. She knows your secrets. I used to clean other people's houses. Now I can't believe this home is actually mine. Husband and I saved for years to give our children the life they deserve. And even though I'm wary of our new neighbor, Mrs. Lowell, when she invites us over to dinner, it's our chance to make friends. Her maid opens the door wearing a white apron, her hair in a tight bun. I know exactly what it's like to be in her shoes, but her cold stare gives me chills. Lowell's maid isn't the only strange thing on our street. I'm sure I see a shadowy figure watching us. My husband leaves the house late at night, and when I meet a woman who lives across the way, her words chill me to the bone. Be careful of your neighbors. Did I make a terrible mistake moving my family here? I bet she did. Just going to go out there on a limb. I bet she made a mistake. Next, we've got One of Our Kind from Nicola Yoon. Nicola used to be a YA author, and I think she's moved much more into this territory recently. So what do we have? It's out this week. Jasmine and King Williams move their family to the planned Black utopia of Liberty, California, hoping to find a community of like-minded people. King settles in at once, embracing the Liberty ethos, including the Lux Wellness Center at the top of the hill. Jasmine struggles to find her place. She expected to find liberals and social justice activists striving for racial equality, but Liberty residents seem to be more focused on booking spa treatments and ignoring the world's troubles. Jasmine's only friend in the community are equally perplexed and frustrated by most residents' outlook. And then Jasmine discovers a terrible secret about Liberty and its founders. Frustration turns to dread as their loved ones start embracing the Liberty way of life. Will the truth destroy her world in ways that she never could have imagined? I really love this cover as well. It's a great beach cover. Next, we've got The Paris Widow by Kimberly Bell, which is out this week. I have to share something funny with you. Tom Donadio and I went to the Thriller Fest party that opened to the event that was sponsored by St. Martin's. And we went, and Kimberly Bell and Kara Ruda, who do have a prime show, which I'm just going to space the name of, Tom will remind me of it later, that they do every week, grabbed me as they went in, and they said to me, we want to film you for Instagram Live. And I said, okay. And they said, we want to know who you would kill, how you would kill them, and when you would kill them. I'm sitting there like, whoa, this is a lot. I just walked into the party. Nobody's even cut me off trying to get a drink. How could I know? So I said, okay, I don't know who I'm going to kill, but the way I'm going to kill them is with a knife or a gun. And I'm going to have either the bellman or the maid bring it in and stick it under the mattress. And I'm going to do it on Saturday night when there's a big party and everybody's really drunk and nobody's going to remember I did this. And it was amazingly fun and amazingly funny. And it reminded me of just how much fun they are and how much fun the show is. It's the killer something. Tom will remind us at the end. But they're absolutely terrific. So now I really want to read The Paris Widow. I've read all of her other books. When Stella met Adam, she thought she had finally found a nice normal guy, a welcome change from her previous boyfriend and a precarious jet-setter lifestyle with him. But her secure world comes crashing down when Adam goes missing after an explosion in the city square. Unable to reach him, she panics. As the French police investigate, it's revealed that Adam was on their radar as a dealer of rare and stolen antiquities with a long roster of criminal clients. Reeling from this news, Stella is determined not to leave Paris until she has the full story. Was Adam a random victim or the target of the explosion? And why is somebody following her through the streets of Paris? Read a couple of her other books, really enjoyed them. This should be fun. Next, we've got A Talent for Murder from Peter Swanson, which is also out this week. Martha Ratliff conceded long ago that she'd likely spend her life alone. She was fine with it, happy with her sole existence, stimulated by her work as a librarian in Maine. But then she met Alan, a charming and sweet-natured salesman whose job took him on the road for half the year. When he asked her to marry him, she said yes, even though she felt he was a little bit of a stranger. I mean, come on, you only see him half the year. A year in, and the marriage was good, except for that strange blood streak on the back of one of his shirts he'd worn to a conference in Denver. Curiosity turned to suspicion. Martha investigates the cities he has been to over the last year and discovers a disturbing pattern: 5 unsolved cases of murdered women. Did she marry a serial killer, or is it merely a coincidence? Sounds like a great plot to me. I was thinking there were going to be wives in the other city. I was not thinking there were going to be dead people in the other city. Just saying, when I read this, that's where I was headed, folks. Next, we've got That Night in the Library. It's by Eva Jershik. It's coming out this week. On the night before graduation, 7 students gather in the basement of university's rare books library. They're not allowed in the library after closing time. It's a perfect place for the ritual they want to perform. One borrowed from the Greeks. One said to free those who take part in it from their fear of death. And what better time to seek the wisdom of the ancient gods than in the hours before they'll scatter to different directions to start their real lives? But just a few minutes into their celebration, lights go out, and one of them drops dead, and the body count rises, with nothing but the books to protect them. The group must figure out how to survive the night while trapped with a murderer. Sounds like That Night in the Library. And just think, at Fordham, when I graduated, all we want to do is climb up in the tower. I mean, we didn't have this great idea. Gosh, we did get up there. That was the cool part. Next, we've got Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. And everybody knows Riley Sager, big mystery writer, big thriller writer, always comes out about summertime. So this is coming out on June 18th. One July night, 10-year-old Ethan and his best friend and neighbor Billy fell asleep in a tent on a manicured lawn in a quaint New Jersey cul-de-sac. In the morning, Ethan woke up alone. During the night, someone had sliced the tent open with a knife and taken Billy. He was never seen again. 30 years later, Ethan has reluctantly returned to his childhood home. Someone seems to be roaming the cul-de-sac at odd hours, and signs of Billy's presence keep appearing in Ethan's backyard. Somebody playing a cruel prank, or is Billy, long thought to be dead, somehow returned to Hemlock Circle? The closer Ethan gets to the truth, the more he realizes that no place, be it quiet forest or suburban street, is completely safe, and that the past has a way of haunting the present. I slept in the Girl Scout tent in my backyard, and nothing like this happened. I did bake breakfast on the grill, though. I thought that was pretty cool. Things we remember. Okay, here we've got The Midnight Feast coming from Lucy Foley on June 18th. It's the opening of the manor, and no expense, small or large, has been spared. The infinity pool sparkles. Crystal pouches for glasses, just guess healing, have been placed in the seaside cottages and woodland hutches. The Manor Mule cocktail, grapefruit, ginger, vodka, and a dash of CBD oil, is being poured with heavy hand. Everyone is wearing linen. They're all going to be wrinkled by the morning. You should know that, wearing the linen. But under the burning midsummer sun, darkness stirs. Old friends and enemies circulate among the guests. Just outside the manor's immaculately kept grounds, an ancient forest bristles with secrets. And Sunday morning of opening weekend, the local police are called. Something's not right with the guests. There's been a fire. A body's been discovered. And no matter how much expense they didn't spare, it's not going to end up to be a great weekend. There you go, The Midnight Feast. Next, we've got The Next Mrs. Parrish by Liv Constantine. It's a highly anticipated sequel to 2017's The Last Mrs. Parrish. Hard work and immaculate planning turned Amber Parrish from an invisible wallflower to prominent socialite. Less than a year after her husband Jackson's tax evasion scandal, Amber reigns supreme over the Bishop's Harbor community. But with Jackson being released from prison, Amber's free time and money is vanishing. Meanwhile, Daphne Parrish has left Bishop's Harbor after her divorce from Jackson, swearing she'd never go back. But one of her daughters runs away from home, desperate to seek her father. Daphne agrees to return for the summer for their daughter's sake. When a ghost from Amber's past emerges looking for revenge, these 3 figures find unlikely allies in one another. But who's playing who? We've got ghost, past emerging. I think the words past emerging, one of these times I'm going to say past emerging, and it's going to be like, one of those drinking games, like whenever you say the word, I'm going to have you keep count of how many times we say it. And then at the end, we'll have a pool for whoever's right. I've got to figure out how to do that one time. Next, we've got All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker, who is the New York Times bestselling author of We Begin at the End. I am reading this right now. It is so well done. Gillian Flynn said this book hits me like a sledgehammer, an absolutely must-read novel. Kristen Hanna said, kept me frantically turning the pages and somehow made me cry at the end. Bravo. Kristen was reading this a couple of months ago, and she asked me if I was reading it. And I was like, Kristen, this book is coming out in June. I'm still reading books from the month before. And she kept telling me, read faster, because I want to talk about it with you. So here's what we've got as the setup. 1979 is time of change in America. Vietnam War is ending. Muhammad Ali is fighting Joe Frazier. And in a small town of Monte Clara, Missouri, girls are disappearing. The daughter of a wealthy farmer family is targeted. The most unlikely hero emerges, Patch, a local boy who saves the girl, and in doing so, leaves heartache in his wake. Patch and those who love him soon discover that the line between triumph and tragedy has never been finer, and that their search for answers will lead them to truth that could mean them losing one another. So well done. I am about halfway through, and one of the reasons I am reading it so slowly is it's got the beauty of language that he uses. There's so many pages that I'm just folding down. It's the galley, folks. I'm folding down because what he has written there has made me pause and stop. And I love books like that really make me think not just about the story, but the beauty of the writing as well. So there's All the Colors of the Dark. And I understand it's building to this ending. A couple of friends have finished it, early copies, and they've all written me to say how much they love this book. So I'm dying to see how it ends. It's not a short one, folks. Next, we've got The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. I had interviewed her when she had written Long Bright River, and I'm dying to talk to her again. This is July's #1 Indie Next pick, which has been selected by the indie authors, the indie bookstore owners. It's coming on July 2nd. Early morning, August 1975, a camp counselor discovers an empty bunk. Its occupant, Barbara Van Laar, has gone missing. Barbara isn't just any 13-year-old. She's the daughter of the family that owns the summer camp and employs most of the region's residents. And this isn't the first time a Van Laar child has disappeared. Barbara's older brother similarly vanished 14 years ago, never to be found. As a panic search begins, a thrilling drama unfolds. Chasing down the layered secrets of the Van Laar family and the blue-collar community working in its shadow, Liz Moore's multi-thread story invites readers into a rich and gripping dynasty of secrets and second chances. Really looking forward to this one as well. Now he's got some memoirs, biographies, and other nonfiction. We're going to start with Ben and me. Let me see if I can wink. I was telling Eric yesterday, I can't wink with the same eye. I can only wink with my left eye. It's on sale this week. Okay, why do we care about Ben Franklin and in a search of a founder's formula for a long and useful life? It's by Eric Weiner. He's the author of The Geography of Bliss. And he writes in that book about where we found bliss in this country. So I'm interested to see what he thinks about Ben Franklin. He lingers in our lives and our imaginations. One of only 2 non-presidents to appear on U.S. currency. Franklin is a founder, statesman, a scientist, inventor, diplomat, publisher, humorist, and philosopher. He believed in the American experiment, but Ben Franklin's greatest experiment was Ben Franklin. Spirit of betterment, Eric Weiner embarks on an ambitious quest to live the way Ben lived. It's not a conventional biography. Ben and Me is a guide to living and thinking well, as Ben Franklin did. It's also about curiosity, diligence, and most of all, the elusive goal of self-improvement. Weiner follows Franklin from Philadelphia to Paris, Boston to London. He attempts to uncover Ben's life lessons, large and small. I've had a peek inside this, and he really does a good job of distilling things that we see in everyday life and what would Ben Franklin have done, how would he have looked at this, and what was his thinking like back then. So Ben and Me. Next, we've got the Friday Afternoon Club, a family memoir by Griffin Dunn. Griffin Dunn's memoir of growing up among larger-than-life characters in Hollywood and Manhattan finds wicked humor and glimmers of light even in the most painful circumstances. In the midst of it all, Griffin's 22-year-old sister Dominique was brutally strangled to death by her ex-boyfriend, leading to one of the most infamous public trials of the 80s. The outcome of the travesty of justice that marked the beginning of their father's, Dominic Dunn's, career as a crime reporter for Vanity Fair and victims' rights activist. Friday Afternoon Club is no mere celebrity memoir. It's down to the bones, a family story that embraces the poignant absurdities and the best and worst of its lovable, infuriating, funny, and moving characters, its author most of all. It's out this week. I've read some excerpts from this places, and you realize what the Dunn family is. You realize how much they had made a mark on writing, on literature, also on the theater. It's just beautifully written, the parts that I've read. And knowing one of the parts I've read was about, they find that Dominique has been killed, and she's been killed by her boyfriend, and is her ex-boyfriend. And it was somebody who had tried this before. And his father, Dominic, is trying to decide, like, she's in the hospital at this point. Should he pack his dark suit? What should he do? What do we think is going to happen? And he sends Griffin out to find his brother, who has no phone and is addicted to drugs, and find him and tell him that his sister died, and to get the two of them on the plane to go out to see what's going on. And it's really interesting because, of course, they're related to Joan Didion and how all these people interact with one another. Griffin is also an actor, as everyone knows, and we'll be touching on that as well. So I'm really looking forward to reading more of this one. Next, we've got Traveling on the Path of Joni Mitchell by Ann Powers, which is also out this week. For decades, Joni Mitchell's life and music have enraptured listeners. One of the most celebrated artists of her generation, Mitchell has inspired countless musicians, from peers like James Taylor to inheritors like Prince and Brandi Carlile, and authors who have dissected her music and her life in their writing. At the same time, Mitchell has always been a force beckoning us still closer, as with the other arm, she pushes us away. Given this, music critic Ann Powers wondered if there was another way to draw insights from the life of the singular musician who never stops moving, never stops experimenting. In Traveling, Powers seeks to understand Mitchell through her myriad journeys. So there you go, Traveling. Then we've got The Uptown Local, Joy, Death, and Joan Didion, a memoir by Corey Leadbeater. It's out this week. Aspiring novelist in his early 20s, Corey Leadbeater was presented with an opportunity to work for a well-known writer whose identity was kept confidential. Since the tumultuous days of childhood, Corey had sought refuge from the rougher parts of his life in the pages of books, and suddenly found himself the personal assistant to the titan of literature, Joan Didion. In the years that followed, Corey shared Joan's rarefied world, transformed not only by the blazing intellect, but also by her generous friendship and mentorship. But secretly, Corey was spiraling. He reeled from the death of a close friend. He spent his weekends at a federal prison visiting his father, who was serving time for fraud. He struggled day after day to write the novel that would validate him as a real writer. And meanwhile, the forces of addiction and depression loomed large. So there you've got The Uptown Local, another one that sounds very interesting. Then we've got The Night Comes Falling, When Night Comes Falling, a requiem for the Idaho student murders by Howard Blum. This is time for the trial that's going to capture the nation's attention on June 25th, when The Night Comes Falling examines the mysterious murders of 4 University of Idaho students. Having covered this case from the start, this Edgar Award-winning investigative reporter, Howard Blum, takes readers behind the scenes of the police manhunt that eventually led to suspected killer Brian Christopher Kohberger, and uncovered large, lurid questions with this unthinkable tragedy. I have the way the investigation of this happened and was kept so quiet, and this Brian was arrested in Kohberger was arrested in Pennsylvania, is absolutely interesting, and to see how it all came together on the back end, I definitely would want to read this book. I'm one of those true crime people. Yes, I am. Next, we've got some August titles to look forward to, because there is another month after July. Starting out with James Rollins, or Archangel, which is Sigma Force novel. It's coming on August 6th. The execution of a Vatican archivist within the shadow of the Kremlin exposes a conspiracy going back 3 centuries to the bloody era of the Russian czars. Before his murder, he manages to dispatch a coded message, a warning of a terrifying threat, one that led to a secret buried within the Golden Library of Czars, a vast and treasured archive that had vanished into history. As combative forces race for the truth behind this death and alarming discovery, Sigma Force is summoned to aid in the search, not only for this missing trove of ancient books, but to follow a trail into the Arctic to search for the truth about a lost continent and a revelation that could ignite a global war. But Sigma Force has its own difficulties at home after an explosive attack on the National Mall, one that is aimed at the heart of their covert agency that has left them vulnerable and exposed. So there's Archangel. Next, we've got House of Glass by Sarah Pekkanen coming on August 6th. It's also going to be one of our summer reading giveaway titles. Rose Barclay is a 9-year-old girl who witnessed the possible murder of her nanny in the midst of her parents' bitter divorce and immediately stopped speaking. Stella Hudson is a best interest attorney appointed to serve as counsel for children in custody cases. From the moment Stella passes through the iron security gate and steps into the gilded, historic DC home of the Barclays, she realized the case is even more twisted and the Barclay family far more trouble than she feared. And there's something else about the house itself. It's a plastic house, not a single bit of glass to be found. Stella comes closer to uncovering the secrets the Barclays are desperate to hide. Danger wraps around her like a shroud, and her past and present are set on a collision course in ways she never would have expected. So there we've got House of Glass. Next, we've got Hum. This book is getting a lot of attention. I heard Helen talk about it at a preview event. It's coming on August 6th. In a city addled by climate change and populated by intelligent robots called Hums, May loses her job to an artificial intelligence. In a desperate bid to resolve her family's debt and secure their future for another few months, she becomes a guinea pig in an experiment that alters her face so she can no longer be recognized by surveillance. Seeking some reprieve from her recent hardships, from her family's addiction to their devices, she splurges on passes that allow them 3 nights respite inside the botanical garden, a rare green refuge where forests, streams, and animals flourish. But when her children come under threat, May is forced to put her trust in a hum of uncertain motives as she works to restore the life of her family. She's author of The Need, which was longlisted for the National Book Award. Next, we've got Wanted, Toddler's Personal Assistant. Subtitle, How Nannying for the 1% Taught Me About the Myths of Equality, Motherhood, and Upward Mobility in America by Stephanie Kaiser. When Stephanie moved to New York City after college to pursue a career in writing, she quickly learns that her entry-level salary won't cover the cost of high cost of living, never mind her crushing student loan debt. But there's one in-demand job that pays more than enough to allow her to stay in the city, nannying for the 1%. Desperate to escape poverty of her own childhood and jump social classes, Stephanie falls into a job that hijacks her life for the next 7 years, a personal assistant to toddlers on Manhattan's Upper East Side. And when this book was being presented last week during our book group speed dating event, it's how she sometimes is the nanny to a child where the mother is still in the room, and all the different things that happened to her. And she grew up as somebody who was like living on food stamps. Her family was not doing well. And now all of a sudden to see this complete dichotomy in living styles and what ends up happening. I'm looking forward to reading this one. Next, we've got Drawn Testimony, My 4 Decades as a Courtroom Sketch Artist by Jane Rosenberg. And this is a kind of book that I love when we do our book group speed dating event, because this is a book that might not have gotten on my radar in a different way. It's coming on August 13th. And who is this woman? For over 40 years, she has been at the heart of the news cycle, covering almost every major trial that passed through the New York justice system as a courtroom sketch artist, including the most recent Donald Trump hush money trial. These are the drawings that you were seeing. This is the woman who was drawing everything, because when the cameras can't be in the courtroom, she's in the courtroom drawing. In Drawn Testimony, Rosenberg brings us into the dramatic, high-stakes world of her craft, where art, psychology, and courtroom drama collide. Over the course of her legendary career, Jane has been front row seat to the most iconic and notorious moments in our nation's recent history. Readers will learn how she honed her unique powers of perception, what her portraits revealed, not only about her subjects, but at the human condition in general. So think of all the times that there hasn't been a camera in the courtroom, and there was these drawings that were coming, her just showing that one man and the judge looking over and his arms being up in the air. What is happening there? What is she trying to represent? And how quickly does she have to draw this? And because it's going to be like in the papers, like, soon afterwards. Absolutely. I think it's got one of those kind of books that you don't ever think about the person, but now you are. Next, we've got Worst Case Scenario for TJ Newman. It's coming on August 13th. We know TJ from Crashing and Drowning, okay? The two books that she wrote. Remember, she was the one that used to be a flight attendant, and now she's turned to author. She had a number of rejections, and this is her third book, I think third year in a row, or pretty close to it. When a pilot suffers a heart attack at 35,000 feet, a commercial airliner filled with passengers crashes into a nuclear power plant in the small town of Waukita, Minnesota, which becomes ground zero for a catastrophic national crisis with global implications. But you want to be on that flight. The International Nuclear Events Scale tracks nuclear disasters. It has 7 levels. Level 7 is a major accident with only 2 on this level on record. Fukushima and Chernobyl. There's never been a level 8 until now. And in worst case scenario, ordinary people, power plant employees, firefighters, teachers, families, neighbors, and friends are thrust into an extraordinary situation as they face the ultimate test of their lives. What I love about TJ Newman's books is she takes these ordinary people that have to be extraordinary in really tough circumstances. Like, what are we going to do about the pilot on the plane that clearly is supposed to be crashing it? What are we going to do about this? And how ordinary people can pull together with people who are trained and figure out what to do. So there we've got worst case scenario. I would say that. Next from Jodi Picoult, we've got By Any Other Name coming on August 20th. Young playwright Melina Green has just written a new work inspired by her the life of her Elizabethan ancestor, Amelia Bassano. But seeing it performed is unlikely in the theater world where the playing field isn't level for women. As Melina wonders if she dares risk failure again, her best friend takes the decision out of her hand and submits the play to a festival under a male pseudonym. In 1851, young Amelia Bassano was a ward of English aristocrats. Her lessons on language, history, and writing have endowed her with a sharp wit and a gift for storytelling. But like most women of her day, she's allowed no voice of her own. Forced to become a mistress to the Lord Chamberlain, who oversees all theater productions in Europe, Amelia sees firsthand how the words of playwrights can move an audience. She begins to form a plan to secretly bring a play of her own to the stage by paying an actor named William Shakespeare to front her work. So there we've got By Any Other Name, and the woman is hidden behind the flowers. Next, one of our readers' favorites we know is William Kent Kruger. One of our readers reached out to me last week and said she finished Spirit Crossing and she was crying at the end. So I just got to tell you guys, that's in store for you. More people have said that about this book. It's coming on August 20th. The disappearance of a local politician's teenage daughter is major news in Minnesota. So a huge manhunt is launched to find her. Cork O'Connor's grandson stumbles across a shallow grave with a young Ojibwe woman, but nobody seems interested. Nobody, that is, except Cork and the newly formed Iron Lake Ojibwe, I always do this wrong, Ojibwe tribal police. As Cork and the tribal officers dig into the circumstances of this mysterious and grim discovery, and uncover a connection to the missing teenager, and soon it's clear that Cork's grandson is in danger of being the killer's next victim. So there we have Spirit Crossing with an absolutely stellar cover, and we've got some news about Kent coming up. Just hold on for a couple more slides. Then from Karen Slaughter on August 20th, we've got This Is Why We Lied. When GBI investigator Will Trent and medical examiner Sarah Linton, McAlpine Lodge seems like the ideal getaway to celebrate their honeymoon. You'd think. Set on a gorgeous off-the-mountain grid mountaintop property, it's a purpose place to unplug and reconnect till a bone-chilling scream cuts through the night. Mercy McAlpine, the manager of the lodge, is dead. And with a vicious storm raging and one access road to the property washed out, murderer must be someone on the mountain. But as Will and Sarah investigate the McAlpine family and the other guests, they realize that everyone here is lying about their past, lying to their family, lying to themselves. Trapped on the resort, Will and Sarah must untangle a decades-old web of secrets to discover what happened to Mercy. And with the killer poised to strike again, the trip of a lifetime becomes a race against the clock. Well, just think, these people can't even relax on their honeymoon. Just shows what fame will do if you're in a book. Wow. So we've got Voyage of the Damned. There Will Be Murder. And that is coming from Frances White. There will be marriage, but there will be murder. For 1,000 years, Concordia has maintained peace between its provinces. To mark this incredible feat, the emperor's ship embarks on a 12-day voyage to the sacred goddess's mountain. Aboard are the 12 heirs of the provinces of Concordia, each graced with a unique and secret magic ability known as a blessing. All except one. Let's see if I can do this. Ganymedes Pissarro, class clown, slacker, and all-round disappointment. And where did you come up with that name? As a beloved heir is murdered, everyone is a suspect. Stuck at sea and surrounded by powerful people and without a blessing to protect him, Ganymedes' odds of survival are slim. But as the bodies pile higher, he must become the hero he was not born to be. So there you've got Voyage of the Damned. We've got That Librarian, Amanda Jones, The Fight Against Book Banning in America, coming on August 27th. In 2022, when Small Town America Library, Amanda Jones was caught wind of a local public hearing that would discuss book content, she knew what was at stake. Schools and libraries nationwide have been bombarded by demands for books with LGBTQ TQ plus references, discussions of racism, and more to be purged from the shelves. Amanda would be damned if her community were going to ban stories representing minority groups. She spoke out that night at the meeting. Days later, she woke up to a nightmare that is still ongoing. Amanda Jones has been called a groomer, a pedophile, a porn pusher. She's faced death threats and attacks from strangers and friends alike. She wouldn't give up without a fight. She sued her harassers for defamation and urged others to join her in the resistance. So this is supporting the freedom to read, the fight against book banning in America, which is a huge topic right now. Okay, these are notable June paperbacks that are coming out. Got the Block Party by Jamie Day, which is one of my bets on selections. Crook Manifesto from Colson Whitehead. First Ladies from Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray. James Lee Burke's Flags on the Bayou. Goodnight, Irene by Luis Alberto Urrea. Lisa C's Lady Tan's Circle of Women. Shari LaPena's Everyone Here is Lying. The Wife App by, and I'm going to specify names, so I have to move something. Hold on one second. I have to move this bar here. This is so hard. Here we go. Remember this the way. By Carolyn Mackler. I should remember that. Matthew Perry's biography, Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. Welcome to Beach Town by Susan Wiggs, and Wellness by Nathan Hill. And you've got the on sale dates for all those books. So anybody who likes to read paperbacks, take paperbacks to the beach. There you go. Your selections are ready. Do something on this page. There's this crazy thing that if you move something, you have to touch something again. Okay, these are my most recent podcasts. Ruth Reichel, The Paris Novel, Tara Shelton Harris, Long After We Are Gone, Genevieve Kingston, Did I Ever Tell You, and Anne Hood, The Stolen Child. One was more fun than the next, and I'm getting ready to line up more people for June. We've just been a little busy. We will be having Lisa Wingate should go up hopefully by the end of this week. And I don't think I have anybody scheduled for next week just because we've had so much going on. I have to check. There's a special contest right now. Remember, to win one of 25 copies of The Lion Women of Tehran, you've got to enter by June 21st at noon Eastern time. It's on bookreporter.com. Very easy to find. Love the book. It's going to get a lot of conversation, folks. Next, we've got our Father's Day books. Father's Day books, which I have not done enough social media about, but I should have done more. And here's what we've got. Terrific collection of books for dads. And you want to go out and enter this. The contest ends on this Friday, I believe, at noon. Let me just confirm that. My contest guru, Tom, when do I end this? I think it's that day at noon. If it's not, Tom, speak up and tell me. Nope, Friday. It's Friday at noon. So you've got to enter really terrific books this Friday. The book Animals I Want to See is one I want to spotlight out a little bit. We reviewed it last week. Really interesting story. Be honest, I don't think it has the best cover. I don't think it's the best title, but really interesting story about a young boy who grew up in poverty, real poverty. The family of, I think, was 12 children. It was, everything was like hand to mouth of what was going on and how precocious he was and how much he wanted to get ahead. And he did things like he got into the best high school. And from there, that got him to 2 Ivy League schools, including to get a law degree. I mean, he just blossomed, but he blossomed a lot because people took care of him. And Animals I Want to See is all the exotic things that he wanted to see in his life, but it's more about like who he was as a person, which is really terrific. I've also started All the Living Stars by Mark Sullivan, which talks about young people being soldiers And it's a very, very, very interesting story. And it's in Mark's hand. Once again, we're getting a great backstory of who these people are and what's going on. Children being kidnapped out of their villages to go and be supporters of the army. Linwood Barclay always does a great job, and he does it again with I Will Ruin You. And The River Remember by William Kent Kruger, we know is a big fan favorite. It's a paperback selection as well. I confess I have not read the other books, but I'm telling you, this is a really good, you want to win this for Dad. Okay, there you go. I got to touch the screen again because I touched the screen. Okay. We've also got our summer reading. They are giveaways for select days this summer. These are all the books. They're listed on the site. So even if you're not winning, folks, we've got some terrific books. If you haven't won so far, we've got some terrific books coming up, and you want to enter, but you also want to look at this as a great summer reading list as well. Nice cross section of books. We are going to do an evening event next week. So all of you have friends who work during the day, or if you want to come back, we're more than welcome. Next Thursday night at 8, we're going to do a preview of books coming out this summer that we think you will enjoy reading. Yes, we will be talking about some of the books you've already heard. We've got more from July that we have not talked about, and some from August that are coming out as well. So if you want to join us, it's next Thursday night at 8 p.m. I believe it's the first day of summer. I'm not sure it's the first day. And Ken Kruger will be joining us to discuss The River Remember, New York Times bestseller, one of my book bets on selections. We also did a contest for this book earlier. This is Tuesday, June 25th at 8 p.m. So there are two events, one on the 20th and one on the 25th at 8 p.m. And if you want to sign up for this one, also, if you have a question for Kent, definitely slot that in as well. And of course, we're going to be doing a little bit of chatter about Spirit Crossing, because we want to give readers a little bit of flavor of what's coming later this summer. And our next Bookaccino Live preview event, preview of books releasing from July 9th through August 6th, and a peek ahead at September, will be on Wednesday, July 10th at 2 p.m. Sign up is available on Bookreporter and on Reading Group Guides. And with that, thank you so much for joining us. It was such a pleasure, as always, to present these books to you. And here's to lots of happy reading.